Welcome to the Smith Den. We're going to talk about the Barbie movie. I've got a shit ton of notes about it. I watched it the other day with my mom. Was planning on watching with my friend. Postponed to next weekend. We were going to watch it with Oppenheimer. I haven't fucking watched Oppenheimer. That movie probably fucking sucks. The only movie worth talking about is Barbie. That's what we're here to do. I watched the fucking trailer for Oppenheimer. Looked fucking boring. Okay, Barbie was great. It was an amazing movie. It was horrible at feminism. And it had some like fucked up, insane message. I really liked the way it was done and the style, and I think it was a good return to movies aren't fun anymore. This was a very fun movie. The shit that doesn't need to be taken seriously wasn't taken seriously, like the rules about how shit works. There's like, it just works. But there was a lot of attention focused on the social narrative. And anybody saying, oh, it's a kid's movie, the central focus is the social narrative. So that's what we're going to be criticizing, because it was pretty fucking awful. So in the Barbie world, the Kens are basically the women. The Barbies have all the jobs, and the Kens are just stand at the beach all day. This is probably going to have spoilers. It's going to be a shit review if I try to not do spoilers. So the Kens are just at the beach all day, and the Barbies have all the jobs. The Kens are obsessed with the gratification and attention of the Barbies, and the Barbies don't give them the time of day. The Kens make jokes about like what was it? Beach off? Yeah. I'm gonna beach off. Let's beach off. I'll beat you both off at the same time. And the Barbies are like, oh, nobody's gonna beach off. They're repulsed by the Kens. They're repulsed by the sexuality of the Kens, and the Kens just do whatever they can to suck up to the Barbies. And if they're lucky, they get invited to Barbie's houses, the dream houses, and they get to have fun for a night, and then they go fuck off and they disappear. And the Barbies have a forever, all year round girls' night. It's always girls' night. So the Kens and the men's, they are the fucking women. So you would think that by the end of the movie, the Kens would, there would be some equality, and the Kens would be liberated in the way that women would, because there's two worlds here. There's the Barbie world, and then there's the real world. So in the real world, where Barbie and Ken eventually go, there is explicitly patriarchy. It's incredibly like blunt. I'll get into that. But in the Barbie world, it's opposite. So women are totally in power in the Barbie world. And in the real world, there's a patriarchy. So Barbie and Ken get magicked away. That shit happens. She starts getting feelings. That's not really important to the social narrative here. It's mildly important for the ending, but they get magicked away into the human world. And Ken he's absolutely obsessed with Barbie. He is constantly competing against the other Kens for her attention, and he's miserable. He looks utterly tortured constantly. And unless Barbie is, saying something nice to him. So in the real world, he discovers the patriarchy, and he's fucking thrilled. And he starts talking to random men about it. He talks to a businessman, and the businessman said what I thought was the most important line in the movie, that the patriarchy still exists, but you can't get a job at our financial firm just because you're a man, because we kind of hidden the patriarchy. So the patriarchy's hidden. I think that was the most important line for the movie, and I'm going to go back to that. Someone in chat says, in the real world, we have people like Leah who enjoys demeaning men, and you have a crush on her. Therefore, you won't talk about what she does. Leah has nothing to do with this movie. So they go to the real world. Patriarchy. Ken loves it. He studies it and he talks to a bunch of men, and he wants to take it back because the patriarchy is not good enough, because he's not benefiting from the patriarchy in the real world for some reason. So he's like, well, I have to make a new patriarchy, which makes no sense. But he goes back to the Barbie world and he makes a patriarchy. They immediately drink it up. That, like, immediately as soon as he goes back, all of the Barbies are brainwashed and all of the Kens are now broing out, and the Barbies hand them beers when they ask them to. And the reason that the Barbies were so susceptible to this brainwashing is because they had never developed antibodies, social antibodies against the patriarchy. So they just instantly, even though they already basically have a matriarchy, like, it's not like they're just default pure natural human beings. They have a extremely rigid matriarchy where the men are second-class citizens. So Ken is now starting to self-actualize and self-differentiate. He still is obsessed with the attention of Barbie, and there's a lot of Kens. There's an Asian Ken, him and Asian Ken, main Ken and Asian Ken. They're rivals. They're still obsessed with the attention of the Barbies, but now that they have power and control, they are telling everybody what something that happens with a lack of self-differentiation or enmeshment, because they're enmeshed with the Barbies. This is relational systems thinking. They're enmeshed with the Barbies, so they're unable to think for themselves. If the Barbies are emotional, they're emotional. They're unable to differentiate between their own thoughts and feelings and the thoughts and feelings of those they admire, and those are the Barbies, which I think is very similar to how a lot of women are affected by the patriarchy, where women will talk about how they are doing a lot of emotional labor for men, and a lot of that happens without men even asking for it. They just do it because they are enmeshed with patriarchy. So you are still not self-differentiated if you are lashing out and you're taking control and you're telling everybody else what to do. It's like if you get home, if you go visit your mom, and she criticizes the pants that you're wearing, and she says, "Oh, I never would have bought you those pants. Like, I can't believe you would have grown up to wear that to my house." I don't know, something fucking underhanded. And you're like, "Holy shit!" And you are like, "I'm gonna wear these pants every time I come here," or "I'm going to never wear these pants again when I come here." Either of those options are completely dependent on your mom. You're not self-differentiated. Like a self-differentiated person would be able to hold both them and themselves at the same time. So you think this about me, I think this about me, and what you think about me is not going to affect what I do. That is what a self-differentiated person does. That's part of growing up, and some people never fully get that. People are like victims of narcissistic people in their lives. So the Kens are trying to learn how to be themselves, and they're broing out, and they've taken control of Barbie Land. Now it's the Kendom, and they are enforcing their will on all of the Barbies. So Barbie eventually goes back, and she has to fix this. And she's not affected by their brainwashing for some reason. So she goes to this one like weird Barbie who's like, the weird Barbie is just like a Barbie that's slightly older and has like different hair. And they devise a plan. So their plan to undermine the patriarchy that has been created is to be passive aggressive and manipulative to placate the men, and pretend to love them, which is what these men have always wanted, because they never get the time of day from the Barbies. But now that they're in power, they feel like they're loved. And I think, that as far as the enmeshment and self-differentiation angle goes, it's a really good analysis for this, and it's going to be something I take with me moving forward, thinking about social dynamics and feminism. And so there's like a scene where they're all like on the beach, and they're all simultaneously like playing guitar and singing to the Barbies. It's already been established that the Barbies hate this stupid rock song. These fucking asshole men, these red pill men. First they were incels, now they're red pill. And the main Ken gets a Tyler Durden jacket, he's a total badass now. And their plan is to pretend to love them and endear themselves to the men, so that at the last minute they can pretend to be getting texts and then go to a different Ken and make it look like they're cheating, so that they can start a war amongst the men, so that they can stop the men from voting on the new constitution that will make Barbie Land now patriarchal permanently. So this is the most egregious thing. Like, the lesson that they're teaching is the way to get out of the patriarchy is to not be honest about how you feel and not have a frank discussion, because those men are suffering too. And those men, like, they don't even know how to be their own people because they were stuck in a matriarchy. Those men, those Kens, are the women of this universe. So they need to be liberated in the same way that women in our universe need to be liberated, like psychologically. And the solution is not to have a conversation where there is growth between the two sexes and they develop better communication and understanding of one another. The solution is for the women to undermine the men and pin them against each other manipulatively while pretending to love them and like placating them and lying. So the men started going to war. And when the men started, when I was in the theater and Ken is giving this, they start doing like a musical number, and they start fighting, but it turns into a musical number. And then at the end of the musical number, they actually come to agreement, and they're like, "We're bros." I have it in my notes somewhere. I'll start going over my notes in a second. And they actually we're brothers. The first time they're focused on their own friendship with one another, rather than being completely obsessed with what the Barbies think of them for the first time, which is a really positive movement towards something healthy. So they're creating this patriarchy. It's not healthy. The Barbies don't get to live in the dream houses, and they have to hand the Kens a beer when they ask. And when they were doing this musical number, and they were talking about their emotions and how they just want to be loved and they just want to be, they just want to be accepted. I forget the lyrics. I have it in my fucking notes. But all the little girls in the theater started laughing at the men. which I found that really upsetting. And I am Ken. Sleepy. And I'm not a lifeguard. I'm an orgasm donor. Just another thing about me and didn't know. So, instead of seizing power, as like what I like the feminist solution should be, they revert to being passive aggressive and undermining and manipulative, and drive the Kens insane so that the Kens cannot go to the Supreme Court and vote. Instead of just going there themselves and voting themselves, or like being like exerting their power, they just subvert the men and fuck with them. And it's this is the only solution they could come up with. While they're doing that, they have to unbrainwash the other women, but they all pretend to be still brainwashed. And while they're brainwashed, all the Kens are so happy because finally they're loved and they're getting the attention that they want from the Barbies. It's like a dream come true for them. They finally feel accepted. So they fail to enact their patriarchy because the vote doesn't go through, and then the Barbies get all their power back. The Kens, unbeknownst to the Kens go back, and the Barbies start swear, like this sassy Barbie starts swearing at the Kens, how fuck you, something like that. You guys are fucking assholes, and they put them in their place. And then Ken says, some other shit happens. There's a mom there, and she gives like this really long speech about the plight of women, how they can't just be people. And as eventually towards the end, Ken says to Barbie, it's Ken and Barbie. It's Barbie and Ken. It's us together. And she's like, no. It's Barbie and Ken. We're separate. You need to learn how to be your own person. And the through line for Ken is that he needed to learn how to be self-differentiated. And that plot, first of all, she's completely undermining his ability to do that by telling him that, so the only reason he's now going to try to self-differentiate is because the woman he's enmeshed with and is obsessed with and is unable to discern his own thoughts and feelings from told him that he has to differentiate himself from her. Like, if he does it because she told him to, it's not actually gonna stick. So she's undermining that. It's completely it's irresponsible, or it's inappropriate of her. And also that goes that washes over any understanding or communication between the genders or the sexes, because it is them together. Really, I watched Ben Shapiro, his review. He was definitely wrong about the movie being like bad overall. It's a great movie. But he's right that like the solution is for feminism is for men and women to be separate. And so now they live back in the matriarchy, except there's a new caveat that, the Kens still are just now second-class citizens once again, but they have to try to not care about the Barbies. Okay, so the Kens are now in the real life situation that women are in, where they have to pretend not to be in the patriarchy, and they have to try to actualize and be full people without actually being differentiated and like self-differentiated, and they're not really given power or authority in their lives, but they have to pretend to so that they can impress the Barbies. They have to pretend to have personal growth and stuff, all in the service of the gaze of the Barbies. They don't even have their own fucking houses. They just disappear and fuck off when night comes. Who knows where they go? They go back to the beach. So both ways, the Barbies, their solution to patriarchy is to pretend to placate men, but kind of try to like underhandedly manipulate and lie to them, and undermine any notion of togetherness. Pretend not to be in the patriarchy, pretend to actually be empowered when they actually aren't. And for the men, it's the same thing. They have to pretend to not be powerless, and they have to pretend to grow to make the Barbies happy. Let's get to my notes here. Now, there's another way you can look at this movie, which changes things a lot. Someone pointed out to me. So if you look at the movie descriptively and not prescriptively, because this movie is presented as a prescription, a societal prescription, which is awful. There's like, from what I said, like none of that is a good prescription. I know, like you might sound like I'm loading it, but like the movie, if you look at the movie for answers, it's telling you like it's horribly confusing and fucked up. The last line I forgot to mention. So Barbie decides that she wants to go live in the real world. She wants to, and something Barbie said was, if I can fucking find it. We need women to live with the cognitive dissonance of being a woman in the patriarchy. And that's how they try to, that's when she comes up with the plan to undermine the men. And she, then at the end, she resolves to go live in the real world under the patriarchy, living with the cognitive dissonance of being in the patriarchy under. And she is anxiously in a car in the back seat, not in the front seat, mind you. She's in the back seat of a car, anxiously fidgeting as she's being driven somewhere. You don't know where yet. She's in like business attire. She looks all spiffy. She's no longer wearing makeup. And at one point, she magically lost her makeup earlier at the end of the movie, at the climax. And the movie paused, and then the narrator made a note that this actor's not a good person to make this point, but she feels ugly now that she's lost her makeup. Except she's not wearing makeup. She's still wearing fucking makeup. It's just the more natural look, and it's like it's just not as much makeup, but she's still wearing makeup. So it's the hidden patriarchy. That's why I said I was going to come back to that, because the conclusion is to just hide the patriarchy and to be even more enslaved to the patriarchy. So she's there in this car with a business attire and the natural, like not as obvious makeup, and she's going to something, and you assume it's something like a job or a house or something because she's establishing herself. She walks into a building in the middle of the city, and she goes up to a receptionist, and then she makes a big smile and says, like with all of her heart, "I'm here to see the gynecologist." So her consolation prize for being in the hidden patriarchy is she gets to have a vagina. Earlier in the movie, it was established that she does not have a vagina. So now she gets to have one. So I guess, like, you know, you're second class, but you pretend not to be, and you pretend to be strong, and you get to, you know, we'll think about your orgasms and shit, you know? So if you look at this movie as a descriptive and not as a prescriptive movie, if that's not a prescription for how to resolve the patriarchy, if that's a descriptive analysis of the world we already live in, suddenly it makes a lot more sense, and it is like kind of amazing. It's a great illustration, but it is painted as a description. And if it was just a descriptive movie, it would have been much more like a artsy character study. It's not something that would have flown. People would be way more weirded out by it. It's definitely not sold that way, or presented that way, but it could have been the way that it is so, it fails so heavily. It like tragically entirely fails for any sort of healthy prescription that doesn't completely line up with hiding and completely playing into the patriarchy, but just hiding it. If it's a descriptive thing, it makes a lot more sense. It could have been the director. What is her name? There was two writers. One of them was a woman and one was a man. And the woman writer also directed it. What is her name? Once I start getting into my notes, Greta Gerwig. Once I start getting into my notes, it's going to go a little bit slower as I find, because I've got a lot of notes. Greta Gerwig. If she intended this to be, if it's the case that she has a lot of criticism of women, and she wanted to make a descriptive analysis to address her criticisms of the way women play into the patriarchy and are failing to escape it, then this would be a great movie. But it isn't presented that way. It might have been her vision, though. Yeah, it absolutely failed at feminism. Yeah, Ben Shapiro hated the movie because Ben Shapiro had some correct points, points I agree with, except he ruins everything by just saying it like an ass. And also, he said the movie was bad. It's not a bad movie. It's like really good movie. As far as movies go, I want to see more movies like this. There was just so much fun and whimsy to it, while it was serious at the same time. Okay, so that's my analysis. It works better if it's descriptive. It didn't succeed at being descriptive. It didn't succeed at having a healthy feminist prescription. And in fact, the prescription it gives is what women are already doing, which is pretending to be empowered, but not actually being empowered, and only trying to wield power underhandedly through men, because they wield their power by tricking the men into not wielding their power. They never actually wield any fucking power. And the Barbies should be like emulating what the Kens did, because the Kens actually tried to seize power. There should be a seizing of power, and there should also be a lot of communication between the Kens and the Barbies, the men and the women, where they learn what they're not doing for one another. They're failing. Their relationship sucks. Barbie hates and has contempt for Ken. She they all reject the Kens sexually entirely. They're just completely dysfunctional and repressed. I thought it was funny because there's a trans Barbie, and that pisses off some radical feminists because the feminist message. Trans Barbie is the Dr. Barbie. At first I thought it was the weird Barbie, which would have made it way worse because it's the weird Barbie that kind of teaches the main Barbie about like feminism. So if like she gets taught about feminism from a trans Barbie, from a male Barbie, it would have been like weird. It would have been like, fuck that. But it was a doctor. There's a scene when the Kens take power, and the Barbies are all brainwashed and they're like sitting there happy, and here's a beer Ken, and just sit there looking happy with the Kens. There's a scene where the trans Barbie is across from one of the, I think it might have been the Asian Ken, and she just like has this like look on her face, and it was just like this is their perfect woman, because now this is the perfect woman that they've always wished that woman would be. Is like, because now the women are finally like paying attention and listening to them, and giving them the time of day. There's actually a joke about the movie about Ken so happy to get the time of day from someone in the real world, but their perfect woman is a trans woman, and I think they did that tongue in cheek on purpose. But anybody that points it out is going to be called transphobic, or whatever, a turf. But I think it was pretty funny. Yeah. It was really entertaining. You didn't clock. Oh yeah. Okay, I knew there was a trans Barbie, but I didn't know which Barbie it was. And I was concerned that it would have been the weird Barbie, because that would have been like the Barbie delivering the feminism to the Barbies can't be the trans Barbie. That's so like fucked up. But it was the Dr. Barbie, and I just remembered that scene because I didn't know that Barbie was trans, but I thought they're just the Barbie. It just was like such a weird facial expression, and it was like such a it's lingered on her face a little bit too long, and I was like, that looks weird. I think they did it on purpose. No, it wasn't portrayed as a trans. It was portrayed as just another Barbie. Nobody said anything about trans in the movie, but they just had a trans Barbie in it. All right, I'm going to start getting to my notes here because I got some nuggets here that are probably good. Yeah, so the beginning of the movie establishes that Barbie sought to change the world and make the world a better place by empowering women, because Barbies have different jobs, I guess. And they're not, and little girls aren't playing with babies anymore. I think a thing of that sort of undermines the movie or the vision of maybe the director is the fact that they had to attach themselves to, like, the Barbie brand gave them a lot of whimsy, but they also had to like kind of sell Barbies. Like they made a bunch of self-deprecating jokes about the Barbie brand, but also there's like, well, I love Barbies, and they like, oh, before girls used to just play with baby dolls, but now, and then there's a 2001 Space Odyssey reference, and their Barbie's legs, like her sexy legs, she's in a swimsuit, is the monolith, and then the little girl takes her baby doll and she starts smashing her whole tea set with the baby doll, like the monkey from 2001 Space Odyssey. And yeah, so very whimsical, very, very entertaining, good movie. There are a lot of diversity. There's a lot of diversity among the Barbies, but there's only one fat Barbie. But in the beginning of the movie, though, they're in like a courtroom for some reason. They're not like trying anything. They're just in a courtroom, and then there's the fat Barbie's pontificating about politics, and she's saying like random socialist and feminist stuff while walking, pacing like she's a lawyer, but they're not really trying a case. They're just listening to her talk about socialism and feminism. There is one fat well, not fat. He's just like, there's a fat Barbie, but there's a chubby Ken. But they don't show him a lot. They show him more when the Kens become red pill Kens and they have the patriarchy. They show the fat Ken more because he looks like a fat asshole. So, yeah, what the fuck? There's a wheelchair Barbie, I noticed. Not that it matters. I'm just fucking saying this. Yeah, so the thing that halts the feminist utopia. So another layer on this is the reason that Barbie has to go to the real world is she starts having thoughts about death, and she has to have negative, like, normal normal person thoughts. And the theme or the thing going here is that women are not allowed to be normal humans. So they have to be these perfect, magical little creatures. So when she starts getting these thoughts of death or these depression or anxiety, then her Barbie powers start to disappear, and her like feet like stop being like shaped for a high heel and they become flat, and she's like walking like a normal person. And the milk in her fridge is like spoiled, and like normal shitty things. Like she wakes up groggy, and the end of the movie, the Barbies realize the reason that she goes back to the human world is because she wants to accept her normalness and accept that she's a flawed normal person. And yeah, but they meshed these concepts together, where her accepting her flaws and accepting death and accepting that she's depressed and she's not pretty as you thought she was. She's supposed to be, like, even though she's a pretty actress, she's like wearing natural makeup, so she's less beautiful, I guess. But it's she's accepting the shittiness of life. And that message is played at the same time as accepting the patriarchy. Because she doesn't even get a job or a house or anything at the end. And she's not even driving her own car. She's getting driven there. And she needs emotional support from another woman while she's in the car. And then when she goes up to the receptionist, she's going to the gynecologist. So she's still living in a Barbie world. Her boobs are still plastic or whatever. The other Barbies are disgusted by Barbie's flat feet. They make gross noises, like vomiting noises and stuff. And yeah, it really works if you're looking at it as a descriptive criticism of women and how they play into the patriarchy. Like they're putting another woman down for, the normal parts of herself. They bring up cellulite. I got a secret to tell you guys. They mentioned cellulite a couple times. I've heard the word cellulite my whole life. I don't know what the fuck that even means. I don't know what that even, I don't even know what that, you get it on your legs and shit. I've never seen a woman's legs that I was like, those are bad. Like, even 70, 80-year-old women's legs look fine. Like, your face gets wrinkly, and your, boobs sag and stuff, but, your legs always look fine. I don't understand what the fuck is cellulite, and why are these people obsessed with it? Well, I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe, I don't really think I care to find out even. It's just, I don't... Yeah, at the beginning, Barbie doesn't want to go to the real world to solve this this problem that's happening that she has to go to the real world to solve. She wants to stay in Barbie Land and be perfect. She's given the weird Barbie gives her a false choice. She says, you can either stay here and live in a dream world, or you can go into the real world and you can discover the truth. And she's like, no, I want to stay here. And she's like, too bad, it's a false choice. I thought that was I think it was like, it's the choice that all women have to stay brain dead and in a fantastical world within the patriarchy, and ignore all the horror of it, or accept the horror. But why would you accept the horror? There's no, like, doesn't feel good. I mean, even statistically, women are less happy now that they've got more rights. So why would they try to actually be self-differentiated? Why would they want to be self-actualized like men? Like the more they go in that direction, the more unhappy they're going to be. So why would they do it? But they have to. So I guess it's Barbie's lucky that she has Weird Barbie to force her to do it. Looking at my notes. A lot of little points in here. I wrote a lot of notes. I basically wrote the whole script. As soon as Barbie gets to the real world, she starts getting more sad. She looks around and she sees normal people doing normal people things. She sees just a couple having a normal argument. She sees little girls playing, a lot of scenes of little girls playing, and she gets sad. Ken goes there and he starts getting thrilled because finally he's not a nobody. He feels empowered. Someone literally asks him what time of day it is, or asked him for the time of day. He talks to random businessmen and stuff, but like I already said, he doesn't actually have the empowerment of the patriarchy because like he can't actually get like a powerful job, so he doesn't have any actual power. So that's why he needs to bring it back to Magic World. Nobody ever fucking gets a job. Like nobody ever gets any actual power. Nobody ever deals with any problems in any way where they directly talk about, or there should be a conflict between the men and the women, the Kens and the Barbies. They should be having a open conflict where they're discussing their feelings about how they're being treated by the other, and they should be talking about like equality and what they need from each other, how they might be neglecting or abusing one another. But none of that fucking happens. They just, at the end, they just go back to abusing the Kens. But pretend you're not being abused and pretend you're a real person. Just like women are today. And that sucks. I can't even get like hard like with women that are like being dishonest about like how they feel during sex, because like women will be so focused on like what I'm supposed to, like they're so focused on me. I'm like, no, but if you I need you to be communicating with me, and I needed the Barbies and the Kens to be communicating, and they don't. Like, once again, though, if that's a descriptive thing, if it was just a descriptive movie, it would be masterful because it illustrates it well, but it treats that description as a prescription, as if that's what you should do. It's so awful. It's literally the opposite of feminism. It's fucking garbage. Someone says in chat, She's waking up groggy because Lava Pit sold her benzos that she wasn't taking anymore. I don't know anything about taking benzos, but good for Lava Pit. Also, they like lie. The movie lies about things. Like the real world, they both play up the oppression and the horror of the real world, the horror of being a woman. Like Barbie instantly gets harassed constantly by men, constantly getting harassed on the street by men. And her defense is, I don't have a vagina. And at the end, she accepts that she has one. So she's accepting the patriarchy, but she's constantly suffering. And then Ken is constantly bombarded with positivity, except he is unable to actually like benefit from the patriarchy. So he's so inspired, but actually he's getting nothing out of it. It's just everything sucks. Like it's played as if there's an escape from suffering, and that's by being the one in power. The ones that get to sleep at the dream house, the ones that get to make their counterpart hand them a beer. But there is no escape for the men or the women. It's played so stark as if they're so separate, but they are not. It's a relationship. It's a family. That's why I'm using family systems, which I'm not an expert at, but I've been learning and thinking about lately. Viral marketing works. Literally nothing you can do to make me see that film. Why is everybody talking about it? It's actually a great movie, and it is an extremely viral marketing because they're pushing a social agenda, or they're claiming to push a social agenda, but there is no fucking social agenda. The social agenda is if the actual agenda is the prescription that the movie gives, it's evil, because it's telling little girls that men's feelings don't matter. You need to lie about your own feelings to men. You'll never have power, but you need to lie to men and undermine them and manipulate them and like make men fight with each other, and that's how you have power. And if you do all that, you get to have a vagina. Is basically the fucking movie. Yeah, it's a social commentary movie, and it's very whimsical and entertaining. Like some people will say like, oh, well, why are you talking about, it's a kid's movie? No, dude. Everything in the movie will go over a kid's head and like just get absorbed into their fucking membrane so that they grow up to be little fucking brainwashed, just like the Barbies and the Kens were brainwashed. Yeah. It's a great movie about fascism, Sleepy says. There's some comments about fascism. That whole subplot about the fascism makes no... There's so much fucking layers happening, and that one is stupid. Because there's no actual like power being wielded in Barbie world at all. So it's not fascism. It's just... They call Barbie fascist because she is a unhealthy expectation or archetype for women to live up to. Some teenage girls call that. Nah. And in the Barbie world, they did say ew, and they thought it was gross that she had like flat feet, but they were concerned, and they didn't try to sentence her to death or anything. They wanted to help her. And they told her where to go for help. So it's not fascism. Like if it was fascism, anybody different would be just killed or excommunicated or stuff. No, if you're a weird Barbie, you still get to live in the Barbie place. You're just weird Barbie. The fascism thing made no fucking sense. I don't know why fucking Ben Shapiro obsessed over that. Well, Ben Shapiro, if you say fascism is cock cage lights up like a Christmas tree. Ken's mostly happy that women respect him because women didn't respect him in the Barbie land. He was truly an incel. And the mom's speech was pretty shit. As a prescription, she gives a speech about how. Let me find it. I have it over here. That's not it. Is it it? It is literally impossible to be a woman. You are so beautiful and so smart, and it kills me that you don't think you're good enough. Like we have to always be extraordinary, but somehow we're always doing it wrong. You have to be thin, but not too thin, and you can never say you want to be thin. Which is what they're doing. They're never saying what they want or how they feel. They're like, she's telling, the prescription is that you are not allowed. The prescription should be to say that you want to be thin. This prescription should be to say that you want to not have to be beautiful. It's like to demand these things. There is no demand being made of women in this movie. They're just like, they're just doing what Barbie said in their, what is her phrasing? Trying to live with the cognitive dissonance of being in a patriarchy. There is no positive, healthy prescription. There's only submission and giving up. At the end, the mom suggests a new Barbie to the Barbie CEOs. Oh yeah, I was saying that they lied. They lied about, I'm going to just continue my point and then I'm going to get back to that. She gives an idea of a new Barbie to the Barbie CEOs. And it's just normal Barbie, and it's a normal woman. She's a normal woman. She looks normal. She's a normal person. She has a normal job or whatever. And then she's like, but also give her a real flattering top. So it's still, she doesn't actually get to be normal. There is no normal. She's like, they're not actually. There's no demand of letting women be normal, and it's still pretend to be normal, just like the Kens have to pretend to be normal, but don't actually be normal. Still be wearing the top so you look good for us, you know? Okay. Yeah, and okay, so they lie in the fucking movie. There are a bunch of like Ben Shapiro in his review points out that there are 5 board members of the Barbie Mattel company that are women and 6 that are men, and for 30 years they had a woman CEO. And in the movie they're all men, and they keep like self-deprecating about that. And then Will Ferrell, the main CEO, is like, well, we have had a female CEO in the past, maybe twice, I don't know. They had one for fucking 30 years, and like they have a shit ton of women on the board. And Barbie was invented by a woman who was in the movie. They wheeled her out. They had like some old woman playing her. It was weird. It was weird. It's like a God moment. And yeah, so like Barbie accepts God. She doesn't actually accept death. She accepts God. She accepts her purpose because the creator of Barbies tells her purpose, and then she sees a flash of white light. So her being concerned and thinking about death never actually comes to a acceptance of the suffering of life. She ends up having a God moment to make it all go away too. I guess that's how she learns to live with the cognitive dissonance of living under a patriarchy. But your Barbie God won't save you. Yeah, as soon as she gets to human world, she gets sexually assaulted. And then they go to jail. Her and Ken go to jail because she gets sexually assaulted and she punches a guy in the face who slaps her ass. Like, he slaps her ass hard and just randomly. And then she punches him in the face, and then they go to jail and they get out. The movie is a lot of stuff that's not realistic, and it's done well, so you can just like let it go. But that was like bullshit. Like, if someone does like assaults you, sexually assaults you, and if you like, she just instinctively like turn around and punches him in the face. Like, where's that guy in jail? It's like played as if it's played off as if they pin her as the one who's in the wrong. Like, the other guy should also be in jail. They don't mention that at all. I feel weird about the kids watching this movie, honestly. Barbie tells Ken not to get in trouble when they first separate for the first time in the real world. And Ken gets angry at her because he's on a mission to self-differentiate, self-actualize. He wants to learn who Ken is. And that whole movie, he's struggling to do that. And she keeps undermining him and ruining his ability to do that. And her ruining his ability to self-actualize and learn who Ken is, it is literally the problem that she has herself. The problem that women have is their inability to self-actualize and learn and discover themselves because they live in the patriarchy. And she puts that on Ken, and it's played off as like good. There's never any conclusion. The little girls in the theater were laughing when Ken was talking about his feelings and starting to discover himself. And then at the very end, Barbie undermines the whole thing, and she tells them, we're not a team. You still got to figure out who you are, but we're in the power again. You go the fuck away. You get out of my dream house. Like, he's like, he pleads with her that it's us, we're together, we should both be allowed to live in the dream house together. It shouldn't be one of us or the other. And she's like, no, actually, you don't even know who you are, so it's you and it's me, but it's not you and me. She's using his issue that she has caused for him. And rather than making space for it, she's using that as a cudgel to beat him into submission. And now he has to also pretend that he's on a struggle to find himself while also having no power. Ugh. I talked to some women before I did this stream to see if anybody wanted to come on. But I think I've pretty much said everything I want to. Who's in chat right now? Sleepy, you've been watching this? Do you have anything to say? I don't know, Sleepy. I don't know. I don't know. Sleepy is gonna be fucking ironic. Gonna ruin my review. If you have something you actually want to say about it, you're more than welcome. Stood out to me. When Barbie goes to the real world, she goes to a school, and she strolls up in the lunchroom to some teenage girls, and they call her a professional bimbo. Dude, this movie sucks. I'm single. I don't have a girlfriend right now. I broke up. But I asked some women. I did it too last minute. I was thinking about making a video about this, but I'm going to go on a trip. I'm going to be back on Friday. On Friday, I'm going to be joining Wick on a panel about porn and once again about porn. And I'm on side. You can fantasize about whatever you want. Like, the thing is about like racism and porn, and I'm like, yeah, fuck race play. I'll go ahead, fucking race play. I want to fucking race play with another white person. That's fucking. There's nothing wrong with that. Literally, I want to do it. I want to do it because you don't want me to do it. I'm gonna do race play with another white girl. I'm gonna do race play with a white girl. Which one of us is gonna be black? Which one of us is gonna be white? No, that's for us to know. It's for you to find out, or maybe never find out, unless I post about it. Maybe one of us won't be white. Maybe it'll be an Asian and a Jew. I don't know. Yeah, you can fantasize about Barbie. Okay. Sleepy says, how's that for not ironic? What? Oh, Sleepy. It's shallow, crass misunderstanding of feminism, misunderstanding of male issues, misunderstanding of relationship dynamics, work, and the metaphors are too on the face that they seem to be parody. Yeah. Well, the prescriptions are literally the prescriptions women already have, which is to still placate men and still play into the patriarchy, still beat each other down, beat other women down, but pretend that they're not, and be extra cool and sexy. Like, still wear makeup, but it has to be the natural look. It can't look like you're wearing makeup. You have to look like you're not wearing makeup while you are wearing makeup. Other comment above it. Let's see. Sleepy says, it's a good movie, but it's definitely not a movie with a message that follows through, and every single reference to issues women's face seems to only be addressed through jokes, and in the end, God fixes it. Yeah, it's pretty much what I said. Copying me. There you got it from Sleepy. That's not ironic, I don't think. Is political stuff's too far, like fantasizing about Nick Fuentes and those types of people? You can fantasize about Nick Fuentes if you want. Sounds naughty. You can do your own Nick Fuentes race play. See if I got anything else good in here. Does anybody want to hop on here? I asked a couple of people. I didn't give it a lot of time. This was all pretty last minute and rushed because I wanted to just get this out. But I think I've said all my thoughts. I pretend that Smith is Nick Fuentes. Okay. Okay, we know what I might do. Okay, I'm going to hop on to Tom's show, Tomfoolery's show. But I'm going to end my stream, change the title, and then turn it back on so that on my YouTube, there will be 2 separate streams with 2 separate titles. So if you want to watch, feel free to stick around. And I'll see you on the flip side. I'll see you in the Smeth den. I'll see you at the other side of the Smeth tunnel.